I had only stopped by to deliver a small box of groceries. The old house sat quietly at the end of a tree-lined street, its faded blue paint peeling under years of sun and rain. Inside, the scent of fresh bread and lavender filled the air. Her grandmother greeted me with the same warm smile she always had, insisting that I come in for tea before leaving. "You work too hard," she said, placing a cup in front of me. "A man shouldn't always be rushing." I laughed softly. "Someone has to keep the lights on." Before she could answer, the front door opened. Emily stepped inside, carrying a bag of medicine. She froze the moment she saw me. It had been months since we'd spoken, yet the silence between us still carried memories neither of us had forgotten. "I didn't know you were here," she said quietly. "Neither did I replied with a nervous smile. Her grandmother looked between us, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Good. Then maybe today is exactly how it was meant to happen." Emily rolled her eyes, but a faint smile escaped. We spent the next hour talking about ordinary things, work, the neighborhood, old friends. Somehow, the conversation felt effortless, as if the distance between us had never existed. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, her grandmother suddenly became serious. She reached for my hand with surprising strength. "I've watched you for years," she said gently. "I've seen how you help people without asking for anything in return. When my roof leaked, you fixed it. When my garden fence collapsed, you rebuilt it. And when I was too weak to carry groceries, you showed up before I even had to ask." I tried to protest. Anyone would have done the same. She slowly shook her head. "No," she whispered, "not everyone." Emily lowered her eyes, clearly emotional. Then her grandmother turned toward her granddaughter before looking back at me. "She's spent too long believing she has to carry every burden alone. She smiles for everyone else, but I know when she's hurting." Emily blinked rapidly, trying to hide the tears forming in her eyes. Her grandmother squeezed my hand once more. "I've prayed for someone who would love her with patience instead of pride, kindness instead of promises." She smiled through moist eyes. "And after all these years, I believe you're the man she needs." The room fell completely silent. I looked at Emily, unsure of what to say. She seemed just as overwhelmed as I was, her cheeks turning red as she stared at the floor. Neither of us expected those words. Neither of us knew that the next few moments would change both of our lives forever. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The ticking of the old wall clock echoed through the living room, making the silence feel even heavier. I searched for the right words, but nothing seemed good enough. Emily quietly wiped a tear from her cheek, embarrassed that her grandmother had spoken so openly. "Grandma," she whispered, "you don't have to do this." The elderly woman smiled kindly. "Yes, I do." She looked at both of us before continuing. "Life teaches you to recognize genuine hearts. Money comes and goes. Success fades. Beauty changes with time. But kindness stays." She turned toward me. "I've watched many people walk into our lives. Some made beautiful promises they never intended to keep. Others disappeared the moment life became difficult." Her voice softened. "But you never left when someone needed help." I lowered my eyes, feeling uncomfortable with the praise. "I only did what felt right. And that's exactly why you're different," she replied. Emily let out a small laugh through her tears. "You always embarrass me, Grandma." "I'm too old to worry about embarrassment," she answered with a playful grin. "I'd rather tell the truth while I still can." The room filled with gentle laughter, easing the tension that had settled between us. After a few moments, Emily asked if I could help carry some boxes into the storage room. I agreed, grateful for a chance to step away from the emotional conversation. The storage room was filled with old family photographs, handmade furniture, and shelves lined with memories collected over decades. As we placed the last box on a shelf, Emily quietly spoke. "I'm sorry about earlier." "You don't have to apologize." "I do," she said. "Grandma has been worried about me ever since my engagement ended." I looked at her in surprise. "I didn't know. Not many people do." She leaned against the wall and took a slow breath. "I trusted the wrong person. He cared more about appearances than commitment. When things became difficult, he walked away without looking back." There was no anger in her voice anymore, only sadness that time had never fully healed. "I'm sorry," I said sincerely. She gave me a grateful smile. After that, I convinced myself it was safer not to let anyone get close. I nodded. "Sometimes protecting your heart also keeps happiness out." She looked at me with quiet surprise. "No one has ever said it like that." For a moment, we simply stood there, surrounded by old photographs that seemed to remind us how quickly life could change. Back in the living room, her grandmother watched us return together. A knowing smile appeared on her face, as though she had been hoping this conversation would happen all along. She reached into the drawer beside her chair and carefully pulled out a small velvet box. "I've been saving this," she said softly. Emily looked confused. "Grandma, what's that?" The old woman placed the box gently on the table, looked at both of us with hopeful eyes, and whispered, "Before I tell you what's inside, there's something important I need to ask." The small velvet box rested on the table, untouched. Neither Emily nor I could take our eyes off it. Her grandmother folded her hands in her lap and smiled gently, as though she had been waiting for this moment for years. "I know this may seem sudden," she began, "but when you've lived as long as I have, you learn not to waste the chance to say what's in your heart." She slowly opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver locket with a tiny photograph of Emily's parents when they were young. "My daughter gave this to me before she passed away," her grandmother said, her voice trembling. "She asked me to give it to Emily on the day I knew someone truly worthy had entered her life." Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "I never knew," she whispered. Her grandmother nodded. "I kept my promise because I wanted to be certain. A good heart cannot be judged in a single day. It reveals itself over time." She turned toward me. "I've watched you choose kindness when no one was looking. You never expected praise, and you never asked for anything in return. That's the kind of man every family hopes to welcome." I swallowed hard, overwhelmed by her faith in me. "I'm honored that you think so highly of me," I said quietly. "But Emily deserves to make her own choice. No one should decide her future except her." For a moment, the old woman simply smiled. "That," she said, "is exactly why I trust you." Emily stepped closer, still holding the silver locket in her hands. "You know," she said softly, "after my engagement ended, I stopped believing that people like you even existed. I built walls around my heart because I thought it was safer." She looked directly into my eyes. "But every time something went wrong, somehow you were there. You never tried to impress me. You simply cared." A gentle silence filled the room. Her grandmother reached out and placed one hand over ours. "I don't expect a wedding tomorrow," she said with a laugh. "I only want you two to promise one thing." "What is it?" Emily asked. "Give happiness a chance." Emily smiled through her tears before turning to me. "I don't know where this road leads," she admitted. "But, would you like to have dinner with me this weekend?" A smile spread across my face. "I'd love to." Her grandmother closed the velvet box and let out a contented sigh. That's all I wanted to hear. As the evening sun poured through the window, the room felt warmer than ever before. It wasn't the beginning of a fairy tale or a perfect ending, it was something far more real. It was the beginning of trust, second chances, and a future that neither of us had expected, born from one grandmother's unwavering belief that love often arrives quietly, through kindness, patience, and the courage to simply say yes.